Hey scholars, so we've already been able to discuss and identify whether relationships are proportional or not based upon tables and equations, but now we're going to try to do the same thing using data or information that's given to us. In order to do that, we are going to investigate how a company might hire someone based upon different pieces of information. For this specific problem, we are going to be investigating 4 different people who are up for a new job. So a specific company is looking to hire someone to read through all the comments to make sure that they're appropriate. So what that means is that they most likely want the person that's able to read through the most comments at the fastest speed. In order to conduct this experiment and make sure that people weren't lying on their resumes, they had those 4 people show up on the same day and issued them laptops to make sure that they could go through the comments and they tracked who was able to do it the fastest. So person number 1 worked for 210 minutes and checked a total of 50,000 comments. So they sat on their computer and they scrolled. Now person number 2 worked for 200 minutes and checked 1,325 comments every 5 minutes. Person number 3 also worked for 120 minutes. However, they worked at a rate of 331 T, where C is equal to the number of comments and T is the time of minutes. So it looks like we might have to do some multiplying here. And then person number 4 worked for 150 minutes at a rate of T equals 3/800 times C. Using this data, I want us to try to order the people from greatest to least in terms of total number of comments checked. So pause the video and give yourself some time to try to figure it out before continuing to watch. So let's start with number 1. We know right off the bat that they had 50,000 comments. It was given to us in the information, so no math needed there. Let's take a look at person number 2. 200 minutes, 1,325 comments every 5 minutes. So what we can do here is to first find the rate of 1 minute. The way that I can do this is if I divide. So I'm going to divide 1,325 by 5 to find how many comments were checked in just 1 minute. And that will give me an answer of 265. So 265 comments per minute, and they worked for 200 minutes. So I'm going to multiply 265 times 200. And it gave me a total of 53,000. So I went ahead and wrote it next to 2. Right off the bat, for the information given to me, I know that person number 2 is probably better to hire than person number 1 because they checked 3,000 more comments than person number 1. So person number 3 worked for 120 minutes at a rate of C equals 331 T. I know that C is equal to the total number of comments, so that's what I'm looking for. And 331 times T, well, T is equal to the time, and they gave us the time. So all I have to do is multiply 331 times 120. Go ahead and do that math out now. Awesome. Your final answer should come out to 39,720. Does person number 3 sound like someone we might want to hire? Yeah, probably not. They check almost 20,000 less than the first 2 people. Now let's take a look at person number 4. They worked for 150 minutes at a rate of T equals 3 divided by 800 times C. So I know that T equals time, and it's what was given to me. So I'm going to say that 150 is equal to 3/800 times C. Now I want to isolate that variable, which means I want to get C all by itself because I'm trying to find the total number of comments. In order to isolate that variable, I have to get rid of this fraction right over here. Now, what can I do to a fraction so that I can cancel it out? What can I do to both sides of my equation? If you answered multiply by its reciprocal, then you are right. Now I can multiply by its reciprocal because anything multiplied by its reciprocal is going to give me 1. And c multiplied times 1 is still going to be c. I just have to make sure that I do it to both sides of my equation. So 3 over 800 is going to cancel out. And now I just have to multiply 800 over 3 times 150. And just like I had mentioned in a previous video, if I'm multiplying by a whole number, I can put it over 1 so I can multiply a lot easier. Now this is going to be a little tricky just because of space, but bear with me. 800 times 150, I'm going to write it just on top of here, is going to be 120,000. And then I multiply 3 times 1, and it's going to give me 3. Now, same thing as we had done in a previous video, I want to reduce this fraction, so I'm going to divide 120,000 by 3. If you got 40,000 as well, then you are correct. And now it looks much cleaner. Awesome. Taking a look at our data now, I'm able to see clearly the number of comments made by each person. Who here would you hire and why? Pause the video and write down your answer. Shout out to person number 2 because I would definitely hire them. 53,000 comments is a lot to check. Shout out to them. So now we're able to see that although we have the number of comments, the times are all different. So one of the things that we can do in order to compare the rates is make sure that we have to find out how many comments were checked per each minute. So something that you can do is divide your comments by your minutes to find your rate. So 50,000 divided by 210 is going to give me 238, which means that person 1 checked 238 comments per minute. Person 2 checked 265, person 3, 331 per minute, and person 4, 267. Now looking at this data, in terms of how many comments checked per minute, who would you hire now? For sure, person number 3. Now that we converted them all to the same rate, we're able to see that person number 3 actually is probably the best option for the employee to go with. So imagine you were David Dobrik or Addison Rae and you were checking your comments. You want to hire someone because there's so many comments being posted on your TikToks, on your Instagrams, on Twitter. So you want to make sure that you hire the best person to do that job. And one of the things that you can do is test them out and see how their rate works out. In this case, person number 3 had the highest rate, so they're probably going to be the one that gets hired.